Good evening, and welcome to Unexplained Reality, the podcast about the weird, strange, and unexplained, but real. We are delighted to have you with us. Please grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and enjoy.
Good evening and welcome to Unexplained Reality. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Quinn. With me is my son,
Harrison Quinn.
And we have a special guest tonight. I'll let Harrison introduce
This
her.
is
Harlei.
Who's Harlei?
Harlei's my girlfriend. Did you not watch the last episode, you unloyal viewer? Come on.
No, they didn't watch it. They listened to it.
Did you not
They
listen
didn't
to the
listen
last
to it.
episode? Come on.
Well, we did have like over 500 downloads for that one, so that was pretty good. Anyways, it's been a while. We've been busy finding other stuff to do. And as usual, if you guys want to get in touch with us, you can reach us at unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. You can hit us at www.unexplainedreality.com and social media. So, if you have any experiences or encounters, you can hit us up and we can get together and talk about it. Tonight, we're going to kind of base this episode. It's going to be loosely because Harlei here is from Colorado.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about some stuff that happened in Colorado. But so this is kind of her introduction into this. And we're going to skip all our normal stuff with news and all that and just go right into it. So, but before we do, you guys got anything going on? How's things going as a couple? Just put you on the spot.
Great.
Yeah, for real. Good.
Our
2 months is coming up.
Yep.
School's going good.
yeah.
The what month? How many?
Our
2.
2 month.
2 months. So school's good. All classes are good. Last year,
Yeah. Thank
ready to
goodness.
be done until
Yeah.
college.
Done until we're not.
What's that?
I'm ready
We'll
for
be
college.
done until we're not done.
Yep, that's true.
Exciting
So-
stuff.
So Harlei, where in Colorado are you from?
So I was born in Pueblo, almost about 2 hours from Denver, and I lived in Aurora, which is kind of on the edge of Denver, for the most of it.
You ever? Sorry, Casey, I just kicked our dog. How about Colorado Springs? You familiar with that?
We drove through it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
I
gonna
never
talk about that some.
went to it. Yeah.
In fact, tonight that's the first this episode was going to basically be about this one particular incident or house, not one incident because there's been many incidents at this house. It was a haunted house in the Black Forest area of outside of Colorado Springs, but it's kind of been beat to death, so I didn't really get into it too crazy. There's been a lot of stuff about it, but so I'm not familiar with Harrison's you've been to Colorado a couple times, haven't
Yeah,
you?
once or twice.
Yeah, you've been through there. I've never been there, so. Word.
It was a reference from when me and Harlei basically first met. She saw that I had Colorado.
He had a Colorado lanyard, and I went, "Oh, you've been to Colorado?" And he said, "Uh-huh."
He's a man of
That's
many
all
words.
I
Yeah.
said.
The first conversation we had, actually.
Yeah, that was a big conversation too.
Mhm.
That was a great conversation.
Harrison's a good conversationalist.
I absolutely am.
He did good.
Yeah.
Did good.
Appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, so the Black Forest is located in Colorado Springs, which is El Paso County. In the last census list, that population is being an unincorporated community of around 13,000 people. The Black Forest is 127 square miles of land, and it's at an elevation of 7,369 feet. The forest got its name around the turn of the century because of the dense growth of ponderosa pine. The Black Forest is actually part of a larger area of forest called the Pineries, which in total encompasses about 1,000 square miles. Based on archaeological finds in the area, it is believed that the Ute and Comanche tribes inhabited the area around 800 years ago, if not further back. And I probably just butchered that tribal name, and I'll probably get emails about it. And anyways, as stated previously, the forest is primarily made up of ponderosa pines, which provide lots of good resources for survival. Due to their very straight and tall fashion that they typically grow, they are perfect for building structures. Also, they typically grow in very dense groups, which provides protection from the elements and potentially predatory creatures, whether human or animal. Also, these trees can be cut or collected from the natural falling process and used for firewood. So that's a lot of background about a lot of stuff that people probably don't want to know. And the neighbor's dog just went off, so now case is gone.
There's
He ran off. He didn't want to hear about it.
He heard the Coco next door, so he's gonna
Investigate.
he might start barking here in a minute. Maybe not. So you don't know anything about the Black Forest area? Did you ever hear about it?
Not really. Black Forest, that sounds familiar, but
There you go.
that's about as much information that you gave me right there.
It sounds like, I mean, when I first read about it, I was really intrigued, but after I started looking at pictures of it, I was not impressed.
Yeah.
All right, so in the mid 1800s, white man, as to be expected, began to come into the region, and with this infiltration, they came with sawmills, new communities were being established. The cities of Colorado Springs and Denver were established, and the majority of the resources needed to build these cities at that time came from the Pineries region, which is where Black Forest is at. Eventually, this area will become known more for its ranching and farming more so than lumbering, and as time progressed, civilization encroached on the area more and more. I didn't know lumbering was actually a word. Did y'all know lumbering was a word? I thought lumbering was like, you can't walk real good, you're like falling over.
Stumbling?
I didn't know it was cutting down trees. It was called
Lumbering.
lumbering. I mean, I know lumber, but
Lumber service? I don't know.
I want to be a lumberer.
I'm gonna be in the business of lumbering. So, needless to say, this area has a rich history within the Indian tribes of the area as well as the white man. The history and variety of inhabitants most likely laid the foundation for some of the experiences people have in this area in current times. One of the most notable of these is the experience that began in 1991. So there was this couple named Steve and Beth Lee, and they had been living in a rented house in the Black Forest community, and the home was secluded and was really everything that they had ever really wanted. They loved the area, and they loved being secluded like that, and they loved the place so much that they purchased the house. And almost immediately after purchasing, this is the weird thing, part of the story is, they'd lived in this house for a while, never had any issues, and then they bought the house, and then stuff started going crazy. So almost immediately after they purchased the home, they began to encounter things that they couldn't explain. The experiences ranged from, unexplained noises while they were sleeping. They had flashing lights, weird smells. And, almost, like I said, almost immediately after completing the purchase of the house, all these strange occurrences began. The first of those encounters was by Lee's sons, claimed to have seen shadows at night in their room. And these weren't just stationary shadows projecting in from outside, created by moonlight or trees or whatever. Instead, these were moving and fluid shadows that would work their way around their room at night. And nothing, it didn't make any sense with how they were seeing them, that it was like a shadow person or something. And eventually Steve and Beth would, also witness these same things firsthand. And, pretty much any kind of poltergeist activity you could think of, they experienced in this house. They saw strange flashes of light out in the forest. They heard knocks or other noises on the outside of the house and on the roof. I thought that was weird because, a lot of Bigfoot encounters, people claim to hear knocking on the house. Like they'll come by the house at night and slap the house.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I mean, that's you hear that a ton in like places where people have activity, Bigfoot activity, and besides just creeping and staring in the window while you're watching TV and stuff, but for some reason they like to slap houses or throw stuff up on the roof and stuff like that. Even people have heard them like get on the roof and like go walking around. I'm not saying that's what this is, but it is Colorado.
Yeah.
And it's a Bigfoot state. I mean, every state really is a Bigfoot state, but anyways,
Colorado, especially.
Yeah. I mean, you got a great place for them to be. They heard footsteps. They heard orchestra music. That would creep me out. I mean, can you imagine you're sitting in your house and you just start hearing orchestra music? And you know where it's coming
I
from?
would not be having that.
No. Weird odors. They described it as like a chemical odor. Be weird too. Mom, man, that would kill Mom.
Yeah.
Waking me up in the
She
middle of
wakes
the
up
night.
in the middle of the night.
Smell like
Do you
chemicals.
smell
in here.
something burning?
Do you smell smoke?
Do you smell somebody doing chemistry experiments? The odor was described as being overwhelming, and it would come up without warning, causing a stinging irritation to the nose and eyes.
Jeez.
So, I mean, that tells you right there that it's more than just. I mean, it's just it can't be your imagination if it's just stinging your eyes and your sinuses. Doors would open and close on their own, which was a whole nother level of creep factor. Electrical devices and lights turning on and off without human intervention. Which we experienced at the old house with you in your room, where the TV, we'd go cut it off and go back in our room and the TV would be on again. One night we did it like 6 times before it finally stayed out.
I would be moving.
Did you ever tell her all the stuff that happened in our old house?
Yeah,
I told her a little
you
bit
guys,
of it.
when Jordan and I were here for dinner.
Oh
you
yeah,
told us
that's right.
all
We
the creepy
did
stuff that was happening.
Yeah. So, and all this was a lot to process for Steve and Beth Lee and to deal with. So, looking for explanation, they installed security system with video surveillance, and the aim here was to, capture the culprits that were responsible for the high strangeness, occurring in their new home. I mean, obviously, you buy a new home, and what the weirdest part is because you're renting the house, and as soon as you buy it, then this starts happening. It almost, does feel like a spiritual aspect because, if it's somebody that's a spirit that's haunting that area and maybe they were a previous owner or something and now you don't own it, you're just living there. But as soon as you own it, then they take it out on you or something. I don't know. It's a stretch, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not, I mean, it's hard to fathom the whole deal, but What they did capture on their security surveillance equipment were weird light anomalies that they couldn't explain, human figures. They saw strange spectral animals in the forest.
Oh gosh.
Light orbs, light streaks.
I've heard about the light orbs. Like, I've read a couple creepy stories where, like, someone would wake up in the middle of the night to their dog barking. And they would look up and there's this light orb right above them. That's kind of human shaped. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there's, I mean, we
just
watched
a ball of light.
Yeah,
I couldn't imagine.
There's a lot of on some of the ghost shows they've had captured orbs and stuff, like the Brown Mountain Lights. Some people describe those as orbs floating through the trees. There's a lot with the what's the forest in Japan where people commit suicide forest.
Aokigahara.
Yeah, I think they've captured orbs in there in the forest, floating through the forest and stuff. And here we go again with Bigfoot. There's a lot of people that in association with Bigfoot encounters have claimed to see orbs. Even I've heard stories of people witnessing Bigfoot walking through the woods, having the orb in their hand. Which, I don't know. I mean, I've only heard that on one occasion, so I don't know. Again, I mean, it could be
Yeah.
some hard drugs or
I
something
could
involved,
not
or
imagine
alcohol
just
or
kinda
something.
seeing an orb just floating.
Being
I don't.
carried by a Bigfoot.
Well,
That'd be even
that's
more
another
stunning
level.
to me.
That'd be cool to see, though.
That'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I would believe it then.
You know what Larry told me just earlier? He told me that like back in like the 60s, they were using like army recruits to test LSD, the effects of LSD, and they were volunteering, and they would use LSD and they would trip, and it was like a CIA type thing. They would like see if that would make them more suggestible to answering questions and such, and they couldn't answer any questions and stuff because they were like tripping really hard, so they just stopped with the testing. And then those same people that had tested it later in life started having these episodes again, and they thought like they had PTSD or something from it, and it was like this crazy thing. It had like mentally broke them or something. But actually, like they found out so many years later that their body was actually storing LSD like in their fat cells.
Really?
And then when they started metabolizing their fat cells, like when they started losing weight, they started like their body metabolized LSD and they started having trips again.
Oh, wow.
And it was
That's crazy. Imagine just like working out at the gym and then be like,
Get in
oh,
your car to go
where
home
am I?
and you're just on the moon.
Just crash, start tripping out. I wonder, was that wasn't MK Ultra, was it? I can't remember what they did. They didn't.
Maybe.
That wasn't LSD they used for that, was it?
I don't remember.
I mean, I remember we did a little bit on one of the episodes we talked about MK Ultra, but I can't remember exactly what MK Ultra entailed. But I know they were taking like really. I think it involved really intelligent people that they were recruiting for that. Yeah, I don't know why the dog's going crazy outside. Are you looking
Yeah.
I've
it
never
up?
even heard of that before.
Operation Midnight Climax was an MK Ultra project in which the government employed prostitutes lured unsuspecting men to CIA safe houses where drug experiments took place. The CIA dosed men with LSD and then, while at times drinking cocktails behind a two-way mirror, watched the drugs' effect on
Okay.
them.
So it
That's
wasn't
what
even
I
with
thought.
their like
So
consent.
It was
They
with
just
LSD.
Yeah.
lured
they
them in
just-
and then
Just
snap.
CIA is wicked, man.
Did it. Yeah,
Dang,
they do some crazy stuff.
Oh.
Rest in
Yeah.
peace, Kennedy.
that government man.
Have you ever? I read this book called Blitzed, and it's about Nazi Germany and how Hitler, had all his troops like hopped up and addicted to methamphetamine.
It was methamphetamine.
Yeah, they had them all. Even him, he was taking meth like I don't know how many times a day. It
He was
crazy.
probably on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. That's messed up. So, okay, anyways, back to this. So the paranormal activity in the house, continued to escalate. The Lees would see that what can be described as, described as like a light show going off in their living room. I guess it would be in their bedroom.
Wow.
And they could see it coming down the hallway. I'm not sure how the layout of the house was. I've seen
like
pictures
just the
of the outside.
glowing.
Yeah, so it would like a disco going on in the living room. I mean,
I would not be able to sleep that
what
night.
gets me is if this goes on, they just stay there. I mean, we lived in our house and we had crazy stuff going on, but it was spread over the 7 years or so we were in it, and it's more like one of those situations where you think back on it and you're like, wow, we had a lot of stuff going on. We didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
But these people had stuff going
I
on
wonder,
like on a daily basis.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I wonder what their timeline was.
Yeah, I think they were. I mean, it was extremely active, like
I
constantly.
would be too freaked out. Like if I saw just a whole light show going on down the hallway, I would not be sleeping.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you live in like a neighborhood, a city or something.
But
you go
they're
out,
in a
you go out to your
forest.
driveway and be like, man, something's tripping in there, But
Yeah.
you're here in the middle of the woods. You're not gonna
Yeah.
go stand outside. Just pack up and leave. Just somehow done
We're going to Nana's house for the weekend.
forever.
We find a new home.
We're living with Nana forever.
Yeah.
Anyways, the only issue here is that there was no source for the lights that they were seeing in the living room. Eventually, the Lees reached out to producers of the TV show Sightings, in the mid 1990s. Their property was featured on an episode of the show, and there was plenty of activity experienced by the personnel that were on site for the filming. And I actually watched that. I think I remember watching it as at that time I was in my 20s, but it was crazy. They had like I want to say, I guess like a psychic or somebody come in, and she had like was talking to the people, producers and stuff. They were doing like a segment, and it was like she said, "There's somebody standing right there," and they had like a anomaly, where they had like the what do you call it, the infrared or whatever, and it was picking up like a hot spot over there, but there was nobody there. It was like a wall, but she said there was a spirit standing right there. I guess she could see it. I'm not sure how that works with them, but she also, I think, described like the upstairs, the center of the activity was the upstairs like closet. They had like a loft bedroom, I think, and they had a closet in there. And she's basically like, that's the gate to hell right there. There was so much bad stuff right there. But anyways, so we're here. The next part I'm going to talk about, they had a few psychics that came to visit the home, and many had the same feelings about the house and the negativity in it. Most claim that the psychic energy in the house was greater than any they had experienced anywhere else in their experience. And another interesting fact is few felt that the energy in the house was centered around that particular upstairs closet. I believe it was in the loft. And they claimed that the closet was the portal that allowed spectral entities to transition into the physical world.
If I get to the point where I think my house is haunted and I'm bringing people in and they have those like heat detector things and they have detected multiple things where it's just a wall, I would be moving at that point.
Oh, yeah. And I believe this house, I might go into it next, but I believe they said the psychics that came in there said there was multiple entities in this house. So it wasn't just being, haunted by one.
Do you imagine bringing a psychic into your house? She's like, yeah, this is terrible. And you open your closet door and she's like, that's the gate to hell.
Yeah.
Don't let him in.
You close
Don't
it
let
right
him
back. Every time you open your closet door, you just hear whispers and stuff. And you're like, maybe I should move.
I would be
But
getting
I guess
rid
it
of the
depends on what the
closet
whispers are. It's like,
and-
you need to wear the blue shirt today.
The right side says wear blue and the left side says wear
tone.
You
red.
open it up and it's like, get out.
Those shoes don't match
gotta
those
go.
pants.
Yeah. What Eddie Murphy say? Too bad we can't stay. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. It's amazing what some people put up with. Even like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just, you think about it in the paranormal sense, you talk about it in the cryptid sense. I've heard lots of stuff with Bigfoot encounters. I know I keep going back to that, but where people will just have all this crazy stuff happen and they just keep hanging around, just keep going, and they're like, oh, well, this happened.
Yeah, ignoring the signs.
Yeah. They leave me dead rabbits, or they do this, and they do, all this stuff. They take stuff, and they're smacking inside the house or peeking in the windows. Nah.
It's the siding's coming off. They're smacking it back up.
That's what it is. Fixing the house.
They leave dead rabbits for dinner, and
Bigfoot's actually a
If I
handyman.
have
Just
multiple dead rabbits on my back doorstep,
I heard this
calling
crazy
someone.
story. Let me think about it. It was I can't remember where it happened, but this woman had walked she took every morning at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. She walked from her house and went to some lake or pond or something. And one morning, I want to say she found a dead snake on the path. She found a dead snake laying across the path, and it
which isn't
like something had broken its neck or something.
Yeah.
And I want to say she saw Sasquatch. She had a sighting, and it freaked her out, and she like took off, got back home, and I don't know if it was when she got back home or when she went home. She left. She got ready to go to work, and when she went out, that dead snake was on her front porch.
Oh, I was gonna say. I was like, That snake isn't too.
I mean,
Oh my gosh.
oh, that's crazy. So, anyways, through the years, there were many skeptics and professionals from various disciplines who came and visited the Lee house, and they left as believers. They, after witnessing the stuff that they were experiencing, and all of these experiences encountered by various people screamed of paranormal activity as the root cause.
Once you have all these people coming into your house, like
Your house is haunted.
Yeah. Well, I'm still not sure.
Let's bring in another
Let's
sidekick.
bring in another one. Yeah. Oh, we saw the lights too, and there's somebody walking over there. I don't know. I'm not sure. We need one more person to verify. Yeah, how many is enough? So, all with the exception of Steve, the paranormal explanation, didn't do it for him. He wasn't going down that route. Right there, they had all these people come in. All these people had witnesses, had psychics come in.
He just didn't believe it.
Yeah, and he's like, I still don't believe it. There's some other explanation. Somebody's pulling tricks on us or something, I guess. So the deeper they got into these activities, he felt that it pointed to a government cover-up or some kind of secret government project.
Government.
So he didn't believe in
my house.
ghosts, but he believed in conspiracy theories.
Because that's a lot more. It's a lot more feasible.
Yeah.
And why would the
they
government
chose my
pick
house?
Him? Yeah.
In the
Let's
middle
go find
of
these
the Black
people in the
Forest.
middle of nowhere and
mess with them.
Well, I think there's a little more to it, a reason, why he felt that way. So, he thought they were using his family to test new weapon technology. I don't know what it's called, the scare tactic. I don't understand.
They were lacing him with LSD.
He was probably just too creeped out to admit that it was.
He's in denial.
Paranormal activity.
I think
I'd be too scared to admit it because I feel like once I admit it, then it's like, oh shoot.
I don't know.
It's real.
I don't see how you can. That's kind
deny
of a leap,
all of that though.
Yeah. I think some people just they have harder time dealing with things, so that's just an easier leap for them to try to explain it away. But you can't discount his thoughts since no one can really explain what is actually going on or went on there, and so his explanation, I guess, for him was enough to get him to cope with it, and I guess was legit in his eyes, but it took a toll on his mental health, which you would expect.
I'm sure.
Dealing with that over years and years.
The whole family.
Right. And so
years.
Dealing with what's that?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how long it went on. I don't know when it was before they left, but I know it was several years, at least. And so, dealing with that kind of active environment without explanation, it weighed heavy on him as it would anybody. And there was an extreme amount of anxiety and paranoia, and that kind of, I guess, they finally eventually, I think, got out of that house.
Yeah.
So
good for them.
I'm not sure where they ended up. I didn't find any information about what happened after that. As far as I know, I guess the house still exists, but I don't know if anybody, lives
maybe
there.
It's a tourist attraction now.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I've seen pictures of it, and it is in the middle of nowhere.
Like
there's
the
other
Shining
houses.
Hotel.
There are other houses around, but it's not like we can run down to the Walmart down the street. It's out there. So.
Yeah.
In a high elevation like that, it's a mountainous area. So, but like I said, I thought it was interesting about the house slapping and stuff, and to me, that rolled me into. I don't think Bigfoot's explanation for what they experienced by any means, but because there's too much other stuff that happened.
Yeah. The closet.
People have weird stuff that happens with Sasquatch encounters and stuff like that, but nothing like seeing disco lights in your living room. That because it was in Colorado Springs area. Let me back up. When he was talking about the new weapons technology, I think I did read somewhere that there was some kind of I want to say it was part of NORAD. NORAD's in Colorado Springs because that's where the Air Force Academy is at.
Yep.
So I think NORAD is in Colorado Springs, and I think there's some kind of government weapons testing like laboratory there in that
Probably.
vicinity. So I think that might have been. It seems like I read something that's kind of why he went to that conclusion. Like he thought something was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess anything's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard some weird stuff with the government that they do.
Yeah.
Or been claimed to have done, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But I guess somewhere down the line it does. But while I was doing this, I happened to run across a couple of articles about the Air Force Academy and their resident Bigfoot. Now,
At the Air Force Academy.
yeah, a couple of years ago, I heard, I think it was on a forum or a page or something I followed where there was this big like back and forth about on the Air Force Academy property there. They have a pretty decent trail system for people to use, because
Yeah.
it's a mountainous area, and I think that's part of the allure of that military base is that there's a lot of outdoor activities, a lot of hiking and mountain biking and stuff. The military had closed down one of those trails for a period of time because of a encounter with wildlife or something like that. It was very generic. I think I got the article in here. We'll get to it, but that kind of when I was reading about this story and then I found this stuff about the Air Force Academy Bigfoot, I remember hearing the story about this trail being closed. And so anyways, so this next thing here is about a Bigfoot sighting at the Air Force Academy, and it happened in the summer of 1991. And I'm not going to rehash. I'm just going to read it out. It came from BigfootEncounters.com. The letter says, "To whom it may concern, after reading some of your stories regarding Bigfoot, I thought I would add something I have kept rather a secret for quite some years. I was a cadet at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado in the summer of 1991. I had been at the academy for only a few weeks and was finishing up basic training when it happened. Now, the academy itself sits on the foothills of the Colorado Rocky Mountains. Basically, I could step out of the cadet area and I would be standing in the mountains. There's plenty of brush, trees, and so on to conceal just about anyone of anything you want back there. Anyhow, one night about 9 p.m., my roommate and I were lying on our beds, chatting about our upcoming camp out in Jacks Valley, which is an area beside the academy where we did a lot of field training, when we heard what sounded like a woman screaming her head off. It was absolutely horrific to hear. What was most interesting was that prior to the blood-curdling noise, we could hear other cadets in their rooms talking and joking." So, I don't know if you've heard that, but with a lot of Bigfoot encounters or suspected Bigfoot encounters, people hear, you hear like the howls, like the Ohio howl, but a lot claim to hear like what sounds like a woman being murdered, like this high pitched just scream. It's like.
Didn't you hear that one time?
Yeah, I heard it one time at Oma's house, but it was, I'm pretty sure it was a rabbit, probably being taken down by a coyote or something.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, but yeah, it was, Larry was there. We both heard it. We sat out there. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and it sounded like a woman being murdered. I mean, it was very unnerving. I mean, it was to the point where, you were almost wanting, even though it was a distance off, you knew it was a distance off. It was almost to the point where, we got to go find out what's going on. You just wanted to go through the woods, even though it was like miles and miles of woods, like, chances of finding that. What's that?
That's how he gets you.
Yeah. "They're coming, Bob. We're eating good tonight.
We eating good.
Look at the little short fat one." So, these guys were laying in there and they hear this, sound. It sounds like a woman screaming. And so the campus, he says, basically was shut down for the night and everyone was getting ready for the next day. I remember the ambient noise being rather loud, Then this scream came. All of a sudden, you could have heard a pin drop. It was so quiet. I turned and asked my roommate if he heard what I and everyone else just heard. And he looks up at me and says, "Oh yeah, that's the local Bigfoot." I couldn't believe it, but of course I heard it. He then proceeds to tell me about a buddy of his who saw a big hairy human drinking at a local lake. When it saw his friend watching it, stood up, turned away, and walked into the forest. Of course, the next week in Jack's Valley for me was a very nervous affair. I was more worried about getting up at night, walking to somewhere. They went to Jack's Valley, and he didn't get attacked by Bigfoot, I guess, because he wrote that letter. But so, anyways, I think that's pretty cool. I think a lot of the government knows. I think most people that are research Bigfoot and talk about it believe that the government has knowledge of it, because heard lots of interviews with guys that were supposedly military, some of them being on like these kill squads where they would be sent into areas where it was a creature supposedly wreaking havoc on a community, killing dogs, killing animals, killing stuff. Or people go missing, unexplained, and next thing you know, a military team comes in and they're doing some secret stuff at night, and then they leave, and these guys claim that they were on kill squads that went in and took these creatures out that were like rogue creatures. I don't know. They could be people that were in the
I've
MK Ultra thing or tripping on LSD.
Heard that about the Air Force Base. We were at the Air Force Base a lot.
Really?
For just lacrosse tournaments.
Yeah.
They held a lot there, but I've never heard that.
I got another thing here, and this was, I think it's from Bigfoot Encounters also. And apparently this guy's replying, I think, to this previous one. Let's see. Yeah. So he says he's currently deployed, and he didn't give his name and stuff because he obviously is still active duty. He says the story you have there about the cadets and that Bigfoot in Jack's Valley are true. It was known in the class at the academy as the Watcher. That's a creepy moniker for it, The moniker was given to the resident Bigfoot because every now and again alert cadets reported seeing the thing watching the cadets from the western edge of the course, and often let itself be seen. Almost like it couldn't stand not being part of the action, or maybe it was lonely and curious. It's looking for a girlfriend.
Poor Bigfoot. Poor Bigfoot.
Poor Bigfoot.
He's
Lonely
lonely.
Bigfoot. Ever been making fun of him because of the beef jerky commercials? So truly, I don't know if it was always the same Bigfoot or not, but to myself, I presume it was. It looked the same every time I saw it, about 4 times in the years he was at the Colorado Springs. But could have been a different individual. Most of the time it would be in the same spot for hours, apparently curious about us, and maybe we were entertainment. Who knows? To my knowledge, it was reported often, matter-of-factly, but we were never told to keep quiet about it. But I do know many of us knew it was a resident of Jack's Valley and said nothing. The Watcher was not there every time I was. We joked about it among ourselves, like that's what you end up looking like when a cadet flunks out of the academy. Stupid stuff like that. We never thought of it like we would a bear. It was more like a man with a shoulder span that was enormous and very black, sometimes just a shadow that moved. In the sunlight. It had a very heavy coat of fur, slick like a bear, stood around in the tree line most of the time, just like any man, but this man was butt ugly. So it was a butt ugly man. The report you have on your website mentions hearing screams. That is probably exaggeration or a scare story. No way I could have heard anything in my quarters. So that's kind of contradictory, but
Yeah.
I don't know though. I don't know. I've heard some recordings that were, seem to be. I mean, obviously on a recording you're not going to get the effect you would in person, but some of the recordings sound pretty crazy.
I don't know a lot about Bigfoot. Like, is he just a dude, like a really hairy creature thing that just kind of walks around, or does he eat people? Like, what is the?
Well,
Is he threatening? Or
Yeah, I mean, it
just-
can't. I mean, a lot of people think he's just like this big, hairy forest giant that's, cool dude and just hangs around the
Yeah.
forest. But there's been a lot of encounters where, people were, really terrified. There was this guy named Mike Woolley, and he had an encounter that he just passed away a few months ago. But he had an encounter, and it's probably one of the more terrifying encounters. He was deer hunting. I want to say it was Ohio. I could be wrong, but I think it was Ohio, somewhere in Ohio. And it was like he was in the deer stand, and he heard something coming up I guess the game trail or whatever.
Yeah.
And a deer came up, and it laid down at the foot of his deer stand. And he said it was panting, it was sweating. He said something was running the deer. So
Yeah.
the deer was frantic. It was scared to death because something was after it. So he was waiting. He was thinking, okay, something's after his deer. So I'm going to see what's going on. Well, then he hears something coming, and he sees a big black something dark behind this tree.
What?
So he's like, well, what is this? So he pulls up his gun and he peers at it, through the scope, and it leans out, and he's like, I can't explain this. I mean, you're talking about, I can't remember exactly what he said, how big he said the creature was, but people on average they're in like the 7 to 8 foot tall range.
Yeah.
So it's not little by any means. It's very, for any average human, it would be, it's a very unnatural thing to see.
Yeah.
First off, and they usually described as being very upright, so it's not like a gorilla or a chimp where they're like bent
Slouching.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're standing pretty, maybe slunched forward a little
That's
bit, but they're
kinda
pretty
creepy.
upright. They're usually described as having very, very broad shoulders, like abnormally, like unproportionately broad, like
Yeah.
4 foot wide shoulders. And a lot of times they're described as like jacked, like super muscular, like ripped. And now, not always, but in a lot of cases they are. So could you imagine you're seeing this 8 foot creature, 8, 9 foot, even 7 foot creature that's jacked, that is got 4 foot wide shoulders, and is just built. A lot of times they describe their like deltoids as being like basketballs. They're so big.
Dang.
And a lot of descriptions I've heard too, where they can transition from 2 legs to 4 legs, like just like in a dead run. They can be sprinting and go to 4 legs and just run just as fast.
That's terrifying.
That's
Yeah.
horrifying.
But anyways, Mike Woolley, so he sees this creature and he's like, he don't know what he's looking at, and but he realizes, it's staring at him. He says it's staring him down. And he said it's got a, I think he described it as like, it had this look, I think it was him. I don't know exactly how he described it, but basically he said it had a look of like evil. It just had evil. He's never seen anything that evil. So I think he climbed down out of his deer stand and he started hauling it back. He had like I think it was like a mile or mile and a half to his truck, or half mile to his truck. And this thing starts after him. And he is running. He's running and running and running. Well, I take that back. Let me back up. Before that happened, he said while he was still watching it, before he got out of his deer stand, he said the creature's looking at him, and he said then the creature turns its head in the direction, and it whistles. And then it turns its head back, looks at him, and he said after it does that, a couple seconds later, he hears a reply, whistle, in another direction. That's when he's like, I got to go. So he gets down, and he starts trucking it.
So it's like a species, like...
It's communicating. And so he starts hauling it, and I think he was getting close to his truck, and it was almost on him. And he said I think he had a pistol. He had a rifle. I can't remember if it was his rifle or his pistol, whatever. He's just like stuck it over his shoulder and fired at it and shot like right by its head, hit a tree. And it was just enough time for him to get around and get in his truck. And he peeled out. And he said, as he was going, he said, this one came out of the woods and was standing in the middle of the road. And he said, coming from a different direction, the other one came. and they were both just both met up at the same point and
Yeah.
were sitting there. So he just got out. They were both coming for him. So,
Oh my
but
gosh.
a lot of those situations, I think people describe them as they feel like he interrupted a hunt. They were hunting that deer. They were going for it. This one's chasing it. This one was going to come in from the side, and they were going to take the deer down.
And how does someone make that up? Like that's
Yeah. So then you had this guy that's just there deer hunting, and he interrupts what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Now they're pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of stories like that where people have encountered. I heard another story. It was out west. It was in the Rockies somewhere, and this guy had been hiking, I think, all day, and he was loading up his truck, and he's standing at the back of it, and he turns around, and this deer just runs up and lays down in front of him. And he was like,
oh gosh.
how many times when a deer comes and lays down in front of you, you're in trouble. And this Sasquatch comes out of the woods, and he said it just terrifying. It's like 15 feet from him, and it bluff charges him. Just runs out and just growling and making all this noise, and like showing its force to him. And I mean, a lot of times these guys that have this, I mean, I've heard countless times where these guys have been interviewed that have been hunting all their lives, never encountered anything like this, and as soon as they encounter this, they sell all their stuff and quit going in the woods.
Yeah.
People have been in the woods for
wouldn't.
30, 40 years of their life, and they just give it up. They're like, I'm never going out there again.
Yeah.
So
I pictured him, like you said, like people think he's just this dude, hairy dude that walks around. I mean, that's how I imagine it.
And a lot of people, like I think in the Mike, I could be wrong, but I think in the Mike Woolley interviews, I believe he said that he had it, he was looking at it in the scope, but the reason he didn't fire at it is because it looked so human. A lot of them say their face looks very human-like.
Yeah.
But then there's other people that have had encounters that claim that some of them look like chimps. So it's kind of like, kind of an understanding in the Bigfoot world that there's possibly different like species of them. There's different types. Like you have ones that they claim look like, I've heard people say look like Neanderthals. We've had some that say they look like chimps in the face. You have others that say they look very human. I don't know. And I want to say it was down in the eastern Texas. I think there's the Big Thicket area is a hot spot. I want to say that people that have seen them down there claim they're chimp-like. They got the chimp face, but those are supposedly very aggressive. A lot of people have been there, like Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles was down there with some guys, stayed down there for a few nights, and they had like logs thrown at them and stuff. I heard a story about this dude that was in a Big Thicket area, and like 2:00 in the morning, he had like medical emergency, and the ambulance drivers came to check on him or whatever. And then they pulled out of his place because it's a pretty remote area.
Yeah.
They pulled out of his place and we're on this main road. There's a main road in there that there's a lot of activity on, a lot of sightings, a lot of stuff have happened on that road. And I want to say it was Bragg Road. Is that right? Bragg Road? Anyways, so they pulled out on this road in their ambulance and they started going that road and they got a flat. Well, it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, so they pull over. In the Big Thicket areas, like people that go there say the woods there are just like out off the chain. It's like thick, just a lot of underbrush, a lot of stuff, a lot of vines, a lot of nasty. So these guys pull over and I think they called dispatch or something to get somebody out to take care of their tire or whatever on the ambulance. And they have a bunch of them come out of the woods, like a group of them, and they surround him. Like the dude was in the passenger seat, like this thing came right up to his face, was looking at him in the window. And they were like shaking the ambulance and stuff. And so I mean, some people, I've heard these encounters where people see them and they look at them, and when the creature sees them, it just turns and goes into the forest, like the one we were talking about, with
Yeah.
the Air Force Academy. But then there's other ones that, like there was these guys that were, this guy was at a UT student in Tennessee at the University of Tennessee, and he worked for the National Park Service, as a part time as a college student, I guess over the summer, or, on his time breaks or whatever from school, and he worked at the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and they got a call. They were sent out one night to look. They had some, like a couple hikers went missing on Mount LeConte.
Yeah.
And so Mount LeConte has a couple paths, a couple of trails going up, and they're pretty rugged. I mean, it's not an easy hike because there's like a campsite or lodge or something, like a rustic lodge at the top of the top of the mountain. But there's a couple paths to get there, different levels of hiking. And so anyways, they sent these guys up different ways, and they took his group, and it was like, I want to say it was like six college students. So we need to go find these people, so you guys go up this path and look for them.
Yeah.
Well, they got up there, and they got into bad weather. They had a snowstorm come in. So I guess up on that mountain, they have some cabins like for the forestry or the national park people to use in case of those situations arise. So they found one of those cabins like 10 o'clock that night. They got in it, unpacked their gear, were getting ready to bed down for the night. Said they'd been like in the bed, I don't know, like an hour or something. And they start hearing screams. And they're like, what is that? They're up on this mountain. There's nobody else really around. And they hear something, and he says, it's like a blizzard outside. Snowing, just snow blowing in, cold, and something's screaming. And it's screaming, and it's screaming, and it's getting closer and closer. Well, it wound up like attacking the cabin. It was like banging on the cabin. It was trying to get in the door, and it was just, it was like, I don't know how long it went on, but it was like, early in the morning before everything settled down. And he said, next morning nobody said anything. They all just like packed up and got down off that mountain as fast as they could. But, there's lots of cases where people have, had negative encounters with them.
Yeah.
And then you had, tons of cases of people going missing. The 411, Missing 411 book series by David Pilates. He doesn't say it's Bigfoot, but a lot of these cases makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Because his whole Missing 411 thing is basically the National Park Service doesn't really keep a good record of people that go missing in their parks, and there's thousands of cases of people that have never been found in national parks. But then there's cases where, like in a lot of his books, where people are reported missing, and they go to this area where they were supposed to be at, and they search it extensively. Hundreds of volunteers come out. They do extensive searches. Don't find anything, not a trace of them. And then like 3 or 4 days later, somebody finds them, and they're like right there, right where everybody was at, like just like they're laid out, like here they are,
That's wild.
And there's cases, and he's got like this profile he's built in his thing, like that. These cases have to meet a certain criteria to be considered a missing 411 case, but I mean, it makes you wonder. I don't know if that's Bigfoot related or, but there's something weird, and it's not. I don't think all his cases are just in the U.S. either. I think there's some that are overseas that have happened. It's just strange.
Crazy.
But no, the whole Bigfoot thing. I mean, I think every state in the U.S. has had, with the exception of Hawaii, has had sightings.
Yeah.
I mean, me and him went up and checked out a place up in Blair, South Carolina, which is less than 40 miles from here, where this woman heard what she described as 4 creatures traveling through the woods behind her house, between her house and the river, and it was like they were communicating. They're whooping back and forth, like 11 o'clock at night. Well, what walks through the woods whooping at each other?
Yeah.
I'd be freaked out if I heard that off the back porch of my house.
A bunch
But-
of hoodlum teenagers.
Whooping in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
Whoop!
Could be. Whoop. Those hairs.
Yeah.
His compadres.
Running through the woods.
Gosh, Harrison?
That
Hoodlum.
the story you said about the people up in the cabin and just something screaming and attacking the cabin, that's just like malevolent to me. There's just something like super sinister about that.
Yeah.
Something just screaming and just wailing on the cabin. That almost sounds like a old forest god or something, you know? Like
Well,
some spirit or something. Just
what
angry.
creeped me out was he was saying, like, the first story, when he was looking through his, like, the little thing through his gun, and the face, that's creepy.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
I mean, knowing you're
And
in
then
that
hearing
position,
the two whistles. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
You're sitting there in a tree stand. You know, you got to get down out of that tree stand. You got to get through the
And you've
woods.
got to run half a mile.
half a
to your
mile.
truck.
Yeah.
I don't.
With a creature.
I feel like I'd be too.
Sorry, man.
Shaken up to run.
Even if you
Yeah.
look like a good man, I'm gonna have to take a manslaughter charge. I'm gonna have to shoot you. Even if it looks like a
I
person.
mean, when you see something that big, then you got to think, do I have enough gun?
yeah.
Because
Yeah,
if you
to
shoot
take
this
it
thing
down.
and you don't have enough gun, you kiss it goodbye.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard interviews with guys who witnessed these things take down elk, and said that witnessed like two of them flush an elk out and take it down,
Dang.
and they'll just kill it and then take it apart, like dismember it, and just tote off pieces of it.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
It's the pull apart.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, can you imagine taking an elk and just pulling the leg off?
Mm.
Elk is a big animal.
I know.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Dang.
let's see, I was getting ready to say something else.
The only creepy thing that I've heard of in Colorado, other than my grandma's house, is a hotel where they filmed The Shining.
Oh yeah, what's that hotel called?
The
Stanley or something like that.
Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. I've been there.
Really?
Yeah. We just look around. You can actually stay, and people think it's actually haunted. But I mean, there's posters everywhere of all like the stars
yeah.
who were in it, and it's really pretty. Like their landscaping is great, but I wouldn't stay the night.
I mean, it's in the Rockies, right? That
Yeah,
hotel?
it's in the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know. There's a hotel in Blowing Rock that's known for being pretty haunted too. What's it called? The Green Leaf or Greenbrier or something like that. Nah. I always worry about that when I travel and stay in hotels. I'm like, man, what is the chances I got a room that like somebody kicked out in or something?
I'm more scared of bed bugs. But
Yeah.
now I'm gonna stay at a hotel and be all creeped
Well, I'm
out.
scared about that too, but
Yeah.
I'm more scared like seeing something come walking out of the wall or something.
No.
This guy I worked with was in Gettysburg, and they were doing like the driving tour. Jim, they were doing the driving tour through Gettysburg, and he looked over and there's this dude walking through the woods in full garb. He's like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So he got back up to the visitor center. He's telling him, he's like, "It's cool that you guys had like reenactors out there." And she's like, "There's no reenactments happening today. There's some dude walking through the woods in full garb."
He's rehearsing.
But that's supposed to be like extremely haunted place.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in the streets of Gettysburg after
I won't
dark.
be anywhere near that place.
I mean, I've been there during the day, and it's got a creep factor. But you got to think, 55,000 men died there.
Yeah.
It's a eye-opening place, but guys, I don't ever want to see anybody walking out of a wall or anything like that. Hearing stuff or
I want to stay asleep. I want to go to sleep, stay asleep, wake up.
Yeah.
Nothing
Asleep or
happening in the
anything.
middle of the night. That's
Mm-mm.
Creepy.
No.
I get creeped out easily too. Like in my bedroom have, these things don't exist in Colorado. Like, the little tiny doors in houses that's like storage space or attic space. I have 2 of those in my bedroom, one at the back of my closet and one on the other side. And I'm like, I'm gonna look up in the middle of the night. There's gonna be someone opening that door and calling out. Like I literally do this to myself. I set myself up for.
I know. I mean, you think about it, seeing like a full size human, but then you see like what was it on one of the ghost shows? Maybe it was it Josh Gates? No, I think it was one of the ghost shows where they captured that thing that was like looked like a big spider run across.
Oh my
but people have seen this thing. It was in an asylum or something.
That's
They
horrible.
call it something the crawler or something like
That's
that.
horrible.
I'm literally not gonna sleep tonight.
That makes me react.
Freaks me
And
out.
not that not to go back to Bigfoot all the time, but people have claimed to see Bigfoot. These creatures get down on all fours where they're stretched out.
And they get like low to the ground.
Yeah, they get real low to the ground. They're like on their tippy toes and their fingers, and they crawl across the ground. I've actually there's a picture on the internet of that. Yeah, that is.
I hate it.
That's a whole nother level of creepy. If I ever saw that, I think I would
That's
die.
terrifying.
It doesn't even have to get to me. To just
I
remember
wouldn't
that, I'd
even.
be
I
dead
wouldn't even
already.
be able to get out a scream. I just got the chills. Like
There's
3 times.
What's
That's
the guy that the
terrifying.
Bigfoot community gives a hard time? Todd Standing in Colorado. I mean, not Colorado, in Canada. He's got this video where a lot of his stuff is very questionable. People question it, but there's this one video where he comes out and he says they're throwing stuff at him or whatever, and he's recording. He's like a GoPro running or something. And you are hearing stuff hitting, flying through the trees, but I mean, you don't see anything. But he comes out and he says, he was aware of this one up on the hill, but after he got down the bottom of this mountain, and he went back and reviewed the footage behind this like log that was like falling over or whatever. There's like this little gap, and you see this black spot in there, and he zoomed in on that. And he calls it the Black Devil, and it's one that's down like that.
Stop.
And his face is black, like just black as night, and his hair. And I mean, just the look on this thing is like. Let's see if we can find a picture of it.
I
It's
will not be able to
crazy.
sleep tonight. I will not.
It's you gotta.
I can't like that stance. That just imagining
Oh,
that in
it's-
my head.
I mean, you don't see that.
freaks
You
me
just see his
out.
face, but you can only imagine that's what he has to be doing to be in that
That
position.
freaks me out. That freaks me out more than clowns.
Really?
And I am
That's
terrified of clowns.
Let's see.
I would just go to Google Images and see if you can find it.
Let's see. Yeah, see these all look. There it is. These all look fake, but look at this thing. Why won't it blow it up? Come on. Oh, jeez. Now it's one. There it is. Look at that. You see that looking through the through a log at you.
It
Yeah, I mean it's hard. But
it
it's,
looks like a human, but also
Yeah, I mean
it looks
could
like a
be.
monkey.
Looks like a really decrepit human.
But if it's not
it
a
looks
human,
like a monkey
that's
at
like-
first, but the more I look at it, I'm freaked out because it looks
Yeah.
like a human.
It just looks like not something I want to see.
It looks like a human, but it doesn't look like something a human should look
Yeah, I
like.
mean it could be a human with like face paint or something on. But if it's not,
That's
Oh.
terrifying.
What was the one
That is super
episode?
I keep
terrifying.
picturing that.
The
stance.
one
I
episode,
keep
or the
picturing
one,
it.
what was that? The documentary we were watching where it was the guys and he had the blindfold on and the ESP headphones on, and he couldn't hear anything anybody was saying, and they were asking the little like gremlin questions, and it was answering, or it was speaking to the guy, and he was saying what it was saying, and they were like looking around, and we were watching it one night on TV. I can't remember what it was.
we were.
They were sitting on the front porch of this cabin, and The one guy had a blindfold on. He had headphones
Hellier.
on.
That was Hellier.
Hellier.
Yeah, Dana and
When you were talking
Greg
about
Newkirk's
the crawler,
show.
that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a human spirit, but something supernatural.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, that one.
Mm.
Yeah. Hellier was something else.
Yeah, they just finished. I just saw on like Twitter or something. They just finished filming season 2 of Hellier.
I can't wait for that.
I literally am gonna picture
The Black
someone
Devil.
opening that little door in my bedroom tonight, and I'm gonna hear the little. And I'm gonna picture someone crawling out like that, crawling up my wall.
Well, you can feel better because I don't
Just
think a
very
Sasquatch is going to fit in that little compartment. So sorry about that.
I'm gonna picture a clown doing that.
That's what it was. Hellier.
Yeah, Hellier. Yeah.
That doesn't scare me as much. I see, like, paranormal, movies and, like, scary movies, Conjuring, stuff like that. I can't do this. I can't do scary. Like,
I can't.
It freaks
I can't
me
watch
out.
the movies. I mean, I can watch like these ghost shows and stuff, but then my brain goes into overload. When the lights go out and it's time to go to sleep, I'm like,
that famous scene, I don't know what movie it was. I think it was The Conjuring. But, like, it's a famous scene. Like, she's playing hide and seek with the kid, and then she's, like, clapping. And the kid's clapping back. And then, when you were talking about the evil closet, that's what I was imagining. Like, she walks into a room and she claps. And then something claps back in the closet. And she opens it thinking it's the little kid. And the little kid's behind her. So she's like, what was clapping in the closet?
Conjuring was
terrifying.
yeah.
funny.
To go back to Bigfoot again,
There it is.
they are
There we go.
they are known as mimics too.
Yeah.
There's this the guys from OK Talk. They're working on a project now with these people. They have a place in Washington State, and they call it Devil's Creek. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Devil's Creek. But basically, what happened was this couple. He's like a businessman. The woman is like a retired nature photographer for National Geographic. So she spent like 30 years of her life traveling all over the world, taking pictures of animals for National Geographic.
That's cool.
Great person to have as a witness.
Yeah.
So they buy this dream house up in the mountains of the Olympic Peninsula, I think it is, Washington State. Super excited to be there. They live up this dirt road, way up this mountain. They have land, and they have their dream house up there. So super excited to go there and move in and stuff. And one day they are in town doing something, and they're coming back up to their house, and they're doing the switchbacks, working their way up to their house. And she's looking out the door. She's looking at beautiful scenery and stuff, and there's this creature standing next to a tree with his hand up on the tree, like watching them. And she's like, oh my God, I think I just, saw a Bigfoot. And he's like, what? I mean, she was a nature photographer, and she just saw this creature she can't explain. But anyways, so they, she's like, what is that all about, But anyways, as it goes on, they start having stuff happening at their house, And I was going somewhere with this, and I just lost my whole train of thought. So they have a couple dogs. And I can't remember. One of the dogs is named Layla, and one of them is something else. I can't remember. But anyways, they were having stuff happen at the house, and so they are suspicious now because she saw this creature that's not supposed to exist. So I believe she set up, or maybe they got in contact, I think, with somebody. I can't remember what his name is, but they got in contact with this guy who's known in the Bigfoot community, and he does a lot with sounds and recordings and stuff. So he came out and set up recorders all over their property. And they captured mimicry. They captured something in the woods calling their dogs. And you can tell it's not them saying Layla. It's like, but it's the sound, but it sounds like
distorted.
Yeah, it's something mimicking in the woods. And, a lot of times people who don't have had encounters or maybe speculate or think they've had encounters will claim that yeah, we heard this owl. We start hearing this owl call, but it sounded like a 300-pound owl. It didn't sound like a normal owl. Something just wasn't right about it.
Yeah.
And you hear that a lot, and that's kind of what these people experienced, but it was with their dogs. So something was trying to call their dogs, and a lot of people associate with dogs going missing with Bigfoot. They'll take dogs out, either who knows why, just because they're annoyance, because they bark when they come around, or just because they
want
eat
a
them or
snack.
something. I don't know. But that whole audio of what they captured at that property is crazy. But they're actually making a documentary about it supposedly. So that's going to be pretty awesome when it comes out, I think. But I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff in the world you can't explain. I mean, nobody knows everything that goes on, so there's definitely lots of room for stuff that we can't get a handle on.
Gosh.
So, I mean, the spiritual world, obviously, I'm 100% believe it exists. I don't know
I
what
do
the
too.
level. I don't know if it's demonic or if it's actually.
I like to believe it's not.
Well, I wonder.
I
It's
mean,
like,
I think there's demonic aspects to it.
yeah,
Like, bad spirits or demons or whatever. But I believe in spirits and ghosts, but in a good way,
yeah,
you
yeah. I mean,
or signs. I don't know.
and I think like going back to our experience at our old house, we never had anything malevolent. It was always unanswered, weird, but we never had anything happen that it was going to harm anybody.
It
Yeah.
was scary, nevertheless, but it wasn't sinister.
Yeah,
It
if
was
it had been
never-
sinister, it would have been a different. We would
It
have
was
been out of
never
there.
super binary. It was just out to get us.
Yeah, it was always just something kind of like a trickster kind of feel. Just sounds
They're
or
messing with us. Yeah.
well, Mom saw the shadow figure. That wasn't evil or sinister either. It was just,
There.
unless it was trying to lead her downstairs for something, but she followed. If it wanted to do something, I had her down there.
Yeah.
Okay, you're down here now. You can go back upstairs. So
Go back upstairs and tell your husband so you can clear the house with a shotgun.
yeah, I did.
And you did.
Scared the crap out of everybody
Sure
that
did.
night, but I was pretty pumped up about it
I
because
think
I didn't even think about that because it happened. I'm just thinking somebody's in the house.
Yeah.
But then you go downstairs, you see everything's locked up, the alarm's on. I'm like, then it starts ooh, well, what the heck's going on here?
Well, then that would actually freak me out more. I would think, oh, someone was in the house before we set the alarm.
Well,
Maybe
that didn't even cross my
waiting.
mind.
That would freak me out.
Why'd you have to say something?
Yeah, you get somebody
Someone
in
was
there
in
and
the
you're
house
hiding.
before you set the alarm.
Well, that's funny. This doesn't have to do with the house, but when I worked for a retail company and we at night, the managers would have to lock up the store,
Yeah.
and they had a certain way you had to do it because they turned alarms on. There's motion sensors, so they had to turn the alarm on and they had to go a certain route to get out without setting the alarm on,
Mm-hmm.
and only they knew how to go. So one night, my boss that I worked for, it was his night to close, and we had all left, and it was just him and the other manager, which was a female. And he told her, he said, they had a routine. So he would stay down there. She went up to the back door, made sure to let the last people out. When everybody was cleared, she would let him know through radio or called him or whatever. She had the doors locked, and she waited for him to show up, and then they walked out together. So he goes, turns the alarm on, goes upstairs, and they go take the freight elevator upstairs and come out upstairs in the stock room, walk through the stock room, walk through the catalog area. It's all dark, it's just a little bit of lighting.
That sounds terrifying already.
And he's walking through there, and there's some dude hiding under the racks in the catalog area.
Did he see him?
Yeah, he saw him. The guy jumped out. I guess spooked the guy, scared him. He didn't know. Scared the guy, and he grabbed a hold of him. The guy was trying to hide in the catalog area. He thought, well, after the store closed, I'm going to go have my way. I'm going to go have a little shopping spree.
Yeah.
And, I would have died. Well, he was
I would've.
ex-football player. He just grabbed a hold
No.
of him, and, I don't know. and held him until the police got there. But
Oh my god.
can you imagine? You walk through this
Yeah.
dark. I mean, I used to get creeped out because I would be back there sometimes at night. On second shift or night shift. It was.
I can't believe you saw him. If I walked by and I saw like a little someone high, like I would be so freaked out.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't-
Literally last night when Brock was jumping out, popping up, and scaring me, I was not having it.
Yeah. I don't know what I would do. I don't think I'd be able to keep my composure. That's for sure.
We closed one night at the pharmacy. We locked the doors and we were getting ready to walk off, and we got past the side windows where it's like the window, like inside the window is the back area where like all the pharmacists stand and stuff. And we heard like a thud, and everybody just stopped, and we like looked at each other. We were like, "We'll deal with it tomorrow." Like kept walking.
We're going.
We figured it was something like a bottle fell off a shelf or something, but it was like.
But how did it fall off the shelf?
Because all the shelves have little lips on them, so it's not like something just
Right.
falls over the edge. We were
And-
just
and
like, we
why
all
would
just
it
looked at
make
each
that
other
big
and we
of a
just shook our
thud?
heads. We're like, we'll do
Yeah.
it. We'll deal with it tomorrow
Well,
morning.
it's like the story Wayne
Anything-
told
what
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't think anything came of it, but
one night. Wayne, Wayne worked with this guy that's my brother. He worked with this guy that claimed that his house was haunted. They had all kind of weird stuff, and it was like stuff like his mom had come out in the morning and found in like flour or something, found little baby handprints all over their counter. Well, it was just him and his mom. He was like 18, 19 years old. There was no baby. And then, just different stuff. And so he's telling my brother about it. My brother's like, hey, we should go over there one night, hang out. And so they did. They went over and hung out, and they were watching like TV or something. And he said they had like this, I don't know if it was like a shelf or a mantle or something, and it had a big like platter or something, like decorative platter sitting up on it. And he said the platter just came off and launched about 4 feet out into the floor and hit the floor. And what did Wayne do? He got up, got his jacket, and left.
Yeah, I would
That's-
leave the house.
That's
I would run out
funny.
into the street or like go to my neighbor's house, knock on the front door, and
I
be like,
was-
"I'm staying the night."
I would just laugh. That's so funny.
Oh
to
my
me.
gosh,
You're just
next
sitting
time
there,
my mom
"Not
goes
me."
out
this
of
just flies
town.
off the shelf and hits the ground. I'd just start laughing. Like, how did
Nah.
Next
That's so
time my mom
stupid.
goes
I
out
would
of
not
town
laugh.
for a work
That's
trip,
like-
I'm not gonna be able to stay alone now.
Oh no.
Oh, she goes out of town a lot too.
Anyways, so that's all I've got tonight. You guys have anything else you want to add? You want to wrap it up?
No.
You're good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Y'all ready to wrap it?
Adios,
right.
muchachos
Yeah.
and cha-chas.
Thanks, Harley, for coming on and joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having
We
me.
got the setup now for more than 2 mics, so you're welcome to join us anytime
Anytime you'd like.
to chat it up. We're never serious. I think I've got a couple of ideas for the next show. So hopefully, maybe in a week, and I'll try to get it going. I say this every time we record. Yeah, we're going to start doing it weekly again, and
Yeah.
then it's like
Never
6 months
happens.
later we put out an episode.
Aw.
Hey guys, sorry, we got a little caught up
Yeah.
with work and stuff.
We found more important stuff to do, stuff that's more funner.
Yes.
So no, I'm actually really going to try to do that, and
Yeah.
So I got some stuff to work on. So I'll try to work on that. When I get it ready, I'll let y'all know. If you want to join, you're welcome
Yeah.
to. But until then, if you guys want to reach us, unexplained.reality@yahoo.com, or you can hit us at www.unexplainedreality.com, or you can get us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
You guys have an Instagram?
all that good stuff. So until the next time, y'all want to say it? Go ahead, Harley, say it.
Adios, muchachos and cha-chas.
Prepare to confiscate the humans' possessions. Possessions secured. Prepare the probe.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait a hot second. No need for a probe, man. Why are you doing this anyway?
To learn from your kind. And to obtain your container of treasures.
Container of treasures? Oh, you mean my cryptid crate?
Yes, the cryptid crate you possess. We desire it. We have discovered it to be populated with many objects we find most incredible. Correct. The objects in this container cannot be produced on our home planet.
Well, you don't have to abduct people to get your own cryptid crate.
Elaborate.
Just go to cryptidcrate.com and sign up. On the first of each month, a new box filled with amazing cryptozoology-themed items will come to your mailbox, or spaceship.
Allow us to show appreciation to you, human, for this invaluable information.
Yeah, sure thing. Does this mean you're gonna take me back to Earth?
Not exactly.
Here at Unexplained Reality, we support our troops and veterans 100%. Our family has a number of veterans, and my son-in-law is active duty serving our wonderful country. We have come across a great veteran-owned company called Awesome Bad Clothing. They have some very cool t-shirts and hats, and best of all, they are veteran-owned. So go check them out at awesomebadclothing.com and let them know you heard about them from Unexplained Reality. And when you go to checkout, type Unexplained in the coupon code box to get 10% off.
Shines like a sunflower. She's got beautiful eyes, and she uses those eyes like she's exercising some kind of superpower. Well, I knew from the first it was never gonna work, and it was gonna hurt, but still I said hello. That dress she was in was so light and thin, like a whispering wind, and she looked so good in yellow. Oh, the days drifted by like the clouds in the sky, and it was summertime, and sometimes I still miss it.